There's something comforting about a best friend who feels like an extension of yourself, and that's exactly what Ryan was to me. From the moment we met during college orientation, we've been inseparable. Ryan had a way of making life's sharp edges feel duller. He was the one who cracked jokes during my darkest days, who stayed up all night helping me cram for exams, and who bailed me out of sticky situations without a second thought. When I lost my dad unexpectedly during sophomore year, Ryan was the one who kept me tethered. He practically moved into my dorm room, ensuring I ate, slept, and made it to class. It wasn't just about his loyalty, it was his ability to make everything seem manageable. He shared everything with me, his dreams, his fears, and even his childhood stories that often left me in stitches. But there was one thing Ryan rarely talked about: how we met. I didn't think much of it at first. Our friendship had simply clicked into place, as if it had always existed. When people asked, Ryan would give some vague answer like, "Oh, Alex and I go way back. We've been through it all together." It was true in a way. He'd been there for every major milestone in my life since college. Why question something so good? It wasn't until the weekend of my birthday that things started to unravel. Ryan had planned a surprise party at my apartment. Balloons, streamers, and a ridiculously over-the-top cake greeted me when I walked in the door. Our closest friends were there, cheering and clapping as Ryan led the charge with a goofy grin and a bottle of champagne. "I don't know what I'd do without you, man," I told him later that night as we sat on the couch, beers in hand, watching everyone else dance to some terrible playlist Ryan had put together. He smiled. "That's what best friends are for, right?" Something about the way he said it felt off, just a flicker of something I couldn't put my finger on. But I brushed it aside. It was Ryan, after all. If there was anyone I trusted completely, it was him. A week later, we were hanging out at a coffee shop when he mentioned, offhandedly, how we'd met at a freshman mixer. I stopped mid-sip, a tiny detail snagging in my mind. "Wait," I said. "I thought you said we met during orientation." Ryan paused for a split second before laughing it off. "Did I? Nah, I'm pretty sure it was the mixer. You were wearing that awful green hoodie, remember?" I chuckled, but something didn't sit right. I didn't remember wearing that hoodie to a mixer. In fact, I was almost certain I hadn't even gone to the mixer. But again, it was Ryan. If anyone would know, it was him. I let it slide. But that tiny inconsistency lingered, like a splinter in my mind. Over the next few days, I found myself replaying moments from our friendship, trying to remember the exact timeline of how we became so close. And the more I thought about it, the hazier it seemed. Ryan had always been there, solid, dependable, but the specifics were oddly hard to pin down. One night, unable to shake the unease, I decided to do a little digging. I pulled out an old shoebox of photos from my closet, determined to find something that would jog my memory. Flipping through the pictures was like walking through a time capsule. There were awkward middle school snapshots, blurry high school dance photos, and a few from my early college days. And then, I found it. It was a picture of me at a birthday party when I was maybe 7 or 8 years old. My mom was crouched behind me, lighting candles on a cake. A few kids surrounded me, their faces half hidden by party hats. But it wasn't the scene that caught my attention, it was Ryan. He was there, standing in the corner, grinning widely. I stared at the photo, my mind racing. How could this be? I didn't meet Ryan until college. We'd never talked about knowing each other as kids. I flipped the photo over, my hands shaking. My mom always wrote dates and little notes on the backs of pictures. Sure enough, in her neat handwriting, it read, Alex's 8th birthday. Friends, Sarah, Jake, Ryan, etc. I stared at the name, my stomach sinking. There was no way. I didn't even remember having a friend named Ryan at that age. How could I have forgotten someone like him? Or had I? The photo wouldn't leave my mind. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Ryan's grin, that strange, misplaced familiarity that felt more invasive the longer I thought about it. How had I forgotten him? Or worse, why had I forgotten him? I decided I needed answers. The following weekend, under the pretense of borrowing my mom's old scrapbooks for nostalgia's sake, I visited her house. She was thrilled, pulling out dusty albums and boxes from the attic with a sense of pride only a parent could have. Do you remember Ryan from when I was a kid? I asked casually, flipping through one of the albums. Ryan? She furrowed her brow. From college? No, like, before that. Did I ever have a friend named Ryan? She thought for a moment, then shook her head. No, I don't think so. Why? I showed her the photo, my finger pointing to him in the corner. Her reaction was immediate but confusing. Her face froze, then softened into a forced smile. Oh, right. That's Ryan. He must have been a neighbor's kid or something. I don't really remember him coming around much. Her tone was off, careful, like she was trying not to say the wrong thing. Mom, did something happen with him? Of course not, honey. You just had so many friends back then. It's hard to keep track. She quickly changed the subject, but I couldn't shake the feeling that she was holding something back. Over the next few days, I started noticing things I'd never paid attention to before. I combed through old photos, yearbooks, and mementos. Ryan's face kept cropping up where it shouldn't. He was in the background of a class photo from middle school, standing near a group of kids I didn't recognize. In a high school event picture, he was in the audience, though I had no memory of him being there. I even found an anonymous card I'd received after my dad's funeral. It had always seemed like a kind gesture, words of encouragement from a stranger. But now, seeing the handwriting, my blood ran cold. It was Ryan's. The notes didn't stop there. Digging deeper, I found more old birthday cards with no return address, small, reassuring messages written in the same hand. Always anonymous. Always there, like he'd been guiding my life from the shadows. I confronted him the next time we hung out. Ryan, can I ask you something? Of course, he said, lounging on my couch like he belonged there. How did we meet? Really? He gave me that same easy smile. Alex, we've been over this. Freshman year. No, I interrupted, sharper than I intended. I mean before that. Were you in my life before college? His smile faltered. Why would you ask that? I've been going through old photos, I said, pulling out my phone and scrolling to the picture of my 8th birthday. I shoved it toward him. You're in this. Ryan stared at the photo, his face unreadable. Then he laughed, a short, nervous chuckle. Wow, I guess I really was there. That's crazy. Maybe our parents knew each other or something? Don't you think you remember something like that? I asked, my voice rising. Ryan, you're in every major moment of my life. Why didn't you ever tell me? It's a coincidence, Alex, he said, his tone defensive. You're acting like this is some conspiracy. Maybe I've just always been around and you never noticed. Does it matter? We're best friends now. That's not an answer. I snapped. He stood, running a hand through his hair. Look, I don't know what you're expecting me to say. I didn't plan this, okay? You're overthinking it. But his words didn't match his expression. His face was tight, his eyes avoiding mine. That night, I couldn't sleep. His reaction had been too rehearsed, too calm. I kept replaying his words, trying to convince myself I was overreacting. But the more I thought about it, the more the coincidences felt like anything but. I needed proof, something concrete. The next day, I went to Ryan's apartment while he was out. He'd given me a spare key years ago, trusting me implicitly, just as I trusted him. Now, as I stepped into his room, I felt like I was crossing a line I couldn't uncross. His place was immaculate, as always. Ryan hated clutter, so I started with the spots he'd least expect anyone to look: the back of his closet, the drawers under his bed, the cabinet above his fridge. At first, there was nothing unusual. Then I found the box. It was tucked behind a stack of old shoeboxes in his closet, taped shut with precision. My hands shook as I peeled it open. Inside were items that made my stomach churn. A friendship bracelet I'd lost in 5th grade. Polaroids of me at various ages, some taken from angles that suggested they weren't from family albums. A copy of the eulogy I'd written for my dad, folded and creased like it had been read 100 times. Ticket stubs from events I hadn't gone to with Ryan, yet there they were, souvenirs from my life. At the bottom was a small, leather-bound journal. The first page sent chills down my spine. Alex, my best friend. My everything. They don't remember, but I'll always be here. The entries were dated, some going back over a decade. Each one detailed moments from my life, my joys, my heartbreaks, all written with an unsettling intimacy. I snapped the box shut, my breath coming in shallow gasps. This wasn't just friendship. This was obsession. And Ryan had been in my life far longer than he ever admitted. The box in Ryan's closet had shattered any remaining illusions I'd held about our friendship. It wasn't just the items themselves, it was the precision with which he kept them, the care he'd taken to document my life. Every piece of evidence pointed to something far more sinister than mere coincidence. But I needed to know how deep this went. That night, I sat in my apartment, staring blankly at my phone. Ryan had texted me earlier, asking if I wanted to grab dinner. I ignored it. My hands trembled as I opened his social media profiles, something I never thought to scrutinize before. Ryan's posts had always seemed normal, pictures of us hanging out, funny memes, the occasional vague update about his life. But as I scrolled further back, things started to take on a different tone. In one post from a few years ago, Ryan had uploaded a photo of a sunset with the caption, "Sometimes it's hard to watch someone you care about hurting and not be able to help." The date stopped me cold. It was the exact day my dad passed away. I hadn't even told him about it until a week later. Another post, months later, was even stranger. It was a photo of a lone coffee cup on a table with the caption, "She didn't show up, but I'll wait as long as it takes." That was the same week I'd canceled a blind date at the last minute, a decision I hadn't told anyone about, not even Ryan. Post after post revealed cryptic hints that mirrored private moments of my life. He'd been watching, knowing, even when I thought I was alone. The discovery made my stomach churn, but it wasn't enough. I needed more proof. The box and the posts painted a disturbing picture, but I couldn't confront him without knowing the full scope of what I was dealing with. The next step was risky, breaking into Ryan's laptop. When I let myself into his apartment the next day, I justified it by telling myself it was for my own safety. If Ryan had been keeping tabs on me for years, I needed to understand the extent of his obsession. His laptop was on the desk in his room, password protected. My heart pounded as I tried the first thing that came to mind, my name. The screen unlocked. The first thing I noticed was how meticulously organized his files were, folders labeled with dates, events, and names. One folder stood out immediately, Alex. Clicking on it felt like stepping into a nightmare. Inside were subfolders labeled by year, going back nearly a decade. 2016, photos of me at my high school graduation. None of them had been taken by my family. In one, I was smiling at the camera, oblivious to the fact that Ryan must have been standing in the crowd, capturing the moment. 2018, a video of me walking to class in college, headphones in, unaware of the camera following me. 2021, audio recordings of my voice, taken during phone calls. Snippets of conversations I didn't even remember having. There were more recent entries too. A photo of me jogging in the park last week. A recording of me laughing with coworkers at lunch, the mic crackling as if hidden nearby. One file made my blood run cold, bedroom_night.mp4. It was grainy footage of me sleeping in my apartment, taken from the corner of my room. I slammed the laptop shut, bile rising in my throat. This wasn't just obsessive behavior, it was stalking. Ryan had invaded every aspect of my life, and I hadn't even known. I was ready to leave, to call the police, when a notification pinged on Ryan's phone, which was sitting on the desk. Against my better judgment, I picked it up and unlocked it using the same password. The notification was from an app one didn't recognize, labeled with a simple blue dot. When I opened it, my heart stopped. It was a location tracker. The map displayed a blinking dot labeled Alex, my exact location, down to the apartment number. Ryan had been tracking me through my phone. At that moment, I heard the sound of the front door opening. Alex? Ryan's voice echoed through the apartment, casual and warm, as if nothing was wrong. I froze, panic flooding my veins. I had to get out. I slipped the phone back onto the desk and bolted for the window, sliding it open just as Ryan walked into the room. He stopped dead, his eyes darting between me and the open laptop. His expression twisted into something unreadable, part confusion, part fury. Alex, he said slowly, taking a step toward me. What are you doing? I didn't answer. My breath hitched as I swung one leg over the windowsill, ready to climb out. Wait, he shouted, his voice sharp. Let me explain. I didn't wait to hear what he had to say. I dropped to the alley below and ran, his voice calling after me, echoing in my ears. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, images from Ryan's laptop replayed in my mind, the videos, the recordings, the tracker. It was as if my entire life had been staged without my consent, and Ryan had been the unseen director. By morning, I'd made up my mind. I had to confront him. No more running, no more guessing. I needed answers. Ryan's house felt different as I approached it. The welcoming familiarity it once held had morphed into something foreboding. My fists tightened as I knocked on the door, each second of silence making my heartbeat louder. When Ryan opened the door, he looked disheveled, as if he hadn't slept either. His eyes darted to my face, then quickly away. Alex, he began, his voice low. Don't, I snapped, pushing past him into the house. You don't get to talk your way out of this. He didn't try to stop me as I stormed into the living room. You've been stalking me, Ryan. For years. I saw the photos, the videos. You've been tracking me. What the hell is wrong with you? Ryan flinched, his shoulders sagging under the weight of my words. It's not what you think, he said, his voice trembling. I was trying to protect you. Protect me? I repeated, incredulous. From what? You've been spying on me like some kind of creep. That's not protection, Ryan, that's insane. Ryan ran a hand through his hair, pacing the room like a caged animal. You don't understand, he said. You've never understood. I didn't want you to find out this way. Find out what? I demanded. Ryan stopped pacing and looked at me, his expression raw and desperate. That you're in danger. That you've always been in danger. The words hung in the air, heavy with implication. I wanted to laugh, to scoff, but the seriousness in his tone rooted me to the spot. Danger from what? I asked, my voice quieter now. Ryan hesitated, as if weighing how much to reveal. There's something that's been following you. It's been there since we were kids. I've seen it, Alex. I've seen what it can do. What are you even talking about? I said, my frustration bubbling over. You're making no sense. Ryan's face crumpled, and he sank into a chair, burying his head in his hands. You don't remember, do you? The lake. The day we met. The mention of the lake sent a shiver down my spine. Memories of that day were hazy, sunlight on water, laughter echoing across the shore. But there was something else, something I couldn't quite grasp. You were drowning, Ryan said, his voice muffled. You don't remember it because it didn't want you to. But I saw it, something pulled you under. It wasn't normal, Alex. It wasn't human. I stared at him, my mind reeling. That's impossible, I said, though my words lacked conviction. Ryan looked up, his eyes red-rimmed. I've been keeping it away from you ever since. Watching, waiting for it to come back. Every time something bad was about to happen to you, I stepped in. His words brought a flood of memories, times when Ryan had shown up unexpectedly, moments when he insisted I avoid certain places or people. At the time, I thought he was being overprotective, even paranoid. Like the car accident, Ryan continued, his voice breaking. You were supposed to be in that car, Alex. I made sure you weren't. The weight of his confession hit me like a tidal wave. You expect me to believe that you've been saving me from some invisible monster? Ryan nodded, his expression resolute. You don't have to believe me. But it's the truth. And all the spying? The photos? The recordings? I had to know where you were, what you were doing, he said. It's the only way to keep you safe. I wanted to scream, to accuse him of lying, but there was a tremor in his voice that made me hesitate. Could he be telling the truth? Even if what you're saying is real, I said, my voice shaking, why not just tell me? Why go behind my back? Because you would have thought I was crazy, Ryan said simply. Just like you do now. Before I could respond, his phone buzzed on the table. Ryan glanced at it and paled. They know you're here, he whispered. Who knows? Ryan didn't answer. Instead, he stood abruptly and motioned for me to follow him. "There's something you need to see." He led me to the basement, his movements hurried and frantic. As we descended the stairs, a foul smell hit me, a mix of damp earth and decay. "What is this place?" I asked, my voice echoing in the dimly lit space. Ryan didn't respond. He stopped in front of a wooden door at the far end of the basement and unlocked it with a key from his pocket. Inside was a room I'll never forget. The walls were covered with maps, photos, and handwritten notes, all connected by strings of red thread. At the center of it all was a timeline, my timeline. Every significant moment of my life was documented in meticulous detail, from my birth to the present day. Newspaper clippings about accidents and disappearances were pinned alongside photos of me. One clipping caught my eye: local boy drowns in mysterious lake incident. The date was the same as the day Ryan claimed we met. "This is insane," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "It's not insanity," Ryan said. "It's the truth. And if you cut me out of your life, you'll be alone when it comes for you again." His words sent a chill down my spine, but I couldn't ignore the pit of dread forming in my stomach. What if he was right? What if cutting ties with Ryan would leave me vulnerable to something I couldn't even comprehend? As I stared at the timeline, a single thought consumed me: I had to know the truth, no matter the cost. I spent the night pacing my apartment, my mind in a whirlpool of emotions: fear, anger, confusion. Ryan's words haunted me: "If you cut me out, you'll be alone when it comes for you again." Part of me wanted to believe he was crazy, just some paranoid stalker who had wormed his way into my life. But the other part, the one that noticed the gaps in my memories and the odd coincidences, couldn't help but wonder, what if he's telling the truth? By morning, I made my decision. I couldn't live with Ryan looming over every aspect of my life. Whatever hold he thought he had on me, it was time to break free. Cutting Ryan off wasn't going to be easy. He was enmeshed in my life like an invasive vine, choking every corner of my world. My friends were his friends. My parents adored him. Even my boss had mentioned in passing how much he admired Ryan's loyalty to me. Still, I had to try. The first step was blocking him on my phone, on social media, everywhere. I even changed my locks, though part of me doubted it would stop him. The messages started almost immediately. At first, they were pleading. "Alex, please, let's talk. I can explain everything." When I didn't respond, the tone shifted. "You don't understand what you're doing. This is dangerous." And finally, "You think you can just shut me out? You need me more than you know." I started noticing strange things after that. Friends stopped answering my calls, and when they did, their tone was cold, distant. My mom, who always doted on me, suddenly sounded guarded during our conversations, asking if I was feeling okay or if I'd been under a lot of stress. Then came the whispers at work. My colleagues, once friendly and supportive, now avoided eye contact. I overheard snippets of conversations, phrases like "unstable" and "needs help." It didn't take long to realize what was happening. Ryan was poisoning them against me. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. Ryan had been manipulating my relationships for years. How many of my friends were genuinely mine? How much of my life had been orchestrated by him, behind the scenes? The worst part was how convincing he could be. He was charming, empathetic, the kind of person who made you feel like you were the most important person in the room. No wonder everyone believed him. But as the days passed, his messages grew darker. "You think they care about you? They don't. I'm the only one who's ever cared. You'll come back to me. You always do. One night, I came home to find my apartment door slightly ajar. My heart plummeted. I stepped inside cautiously, my phone clenched in one hand, ready to call for help. The living room was eerily quiet, but something felt wrong. Then I saw it, the box from Ryan's basement. The one filled with the timeline of my life, the newspaper clippings, the photos. It was sitting in the middle of my coffee table, like a macabre gift. Hello, Alex? I spun around, my blood turning to ice. Ryan was standing in the doorway, his expression unreadable. What the hell are you doing here? I demanded, my voice shaking. I couldn't let you do this, he said calmly. You're making a mistake. I backed away slowly, my eyes darting toward the kitchen, where a knife sat on the counter. Get out, Ryan. I mean it. Ryan's calm demeanor cracked, his face contorting with a mix of anger and desperation. You don't get it, do you? He hissed. I've given you everything. Your life is what it is because of me. His voice rose, and he took a step closer. Do you think your friends stuck around because they liked you? Do you think your career took off because of your talent? No, Alex. It's because of me. I've been there every step of the way, cleaning up your messes, making sure you were safe. And this is how you repay me? I grabbed the knife, holding it out in front of me. Stay back. Ryan froze, his eyes narrowing. You wouldn't. Try me, I said, though my hands were trembling. For a moment, we stood there in silence, the tension so thick it was suffocating. Then Ryan's face softened, and he let out a low chuckle. You don't even know the half of it, he said. Do you want to know the truth, Alex? The real truth? Before I could respond, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a photograph. He tossed it onto the coffee table, and I couldn't stop myself from looking. It was a picture of a child, a boy around 8 or 9 years old. His face was familiar, but I couldn't place him. Who is this? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Ryan smirked. You don't recognize him? Of course you don't. He's been erased, just like the others. Others? Ryan stepped closer, his eyes glinting with something dark and dangerous. You think you're special, Alex? You're not. There have been others before you. People I tried to save. But they didn't listen. They pushed me away, just like you're doing now. And do you know what happened to them? He leaned in, his voice dropping to a whisper. They disappeared. Just like he did. I stared at the photograph, my stomach twisting. There was something chillingly familiar about the boy's eyes, something that tugged at a memory buried deep in my mind. And then it hit me. The boy was a classmate of mine from elementary school. Daniel. He'd gone missing one summer, never to be seen again. The police had chalked it up to a tragic accident, but no one had ever found a body. What does this have to do with me? I demanded, my voice rising. Ryan smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Everything, Alex. It has everything to do with you. The room seemed to spin as the implications of his words sank in. Ryan wasn't just a stalker. He was something far worse. And I was his next target. Get out, I said, my voice trembling. Ryan's smile faded, replaced by a look of cold determination. You're not safe without me, Alex. You never have been. And you never will be. With that, He turned and walked out the door, leaving me alone with the photograph and the chilling realization that I might never escape him. The motel room was suffocating, its air thick with mildew and the smell of stale cigarettes. The blinds were drawn tight, and I hadn't turned on the lights since I'd arrived 3 days ago. I lived in shadows now. I had taken every precaution I could think of, ditched my phone, paid in cash, dyed my hair a shade darker, even abandoned my car a few miles away and walked to this rundown dive. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that Ryan was out there, watching, waiting. The box I'd stolen from his house sat on the table, its contents spilled out like a puzzle missing its edges. There were maps marked with locations I couldn't decipher, more photos of me from every stage of my life, and a stack of newspaper clippings detailing disappearances, accidents, and unsolved crimes. But what haunted me most was a crumpled letter buried at the bottom of the box, addressed to Ryan in handwriting I didn't recognize. Keep Alex safe at all costs. You know what's at stake. It didn't make sense. Who was behind this? Why was Ryan obsessed with me, and who was pulling his strings? The letter was unsigned, but there was one clue, a faded logo on the corner, a phoenix surrounded by a ring of flames. I had seen that symbol before. As a kid, I'd found a strange journal hidden in the attic of my childhood home. It had the same phoenix insignia on its cover, and its pages were filled with cryptic notes about protection protocols and monitoring subjects. My mother had taken it from me the moment she saw it, her face pale and drawn, and I'd never seen it again. Could she have been involved? My thoughts were interrupted by a knock on the door. My heart leapt into my throat. "Housekeeping," a voice called. I stayed silent, gripping the knife I kept under the pillow. Another knock, louder this time. "Alex, I know you're in there." "Ryan." I froze, my pulse pounding in my ears. How had he found me? I'd covered my tracks so carefully. "Please, just let me in." "I need to explain," he said, his voice soft, almost pleading. I didn't move. "I know you're scared. But you don't understand what's happening. You're in danger, Alex. Real danger. And it's not from me." The door handle jiggled. "I'm coming in," he said. The lock gave way with a sickening snap, and the door swung open. Ryan stepped inside, his face a mixture of desperation and relief. "I told you to leave me alone," I said, my voice trembling as I raised the knife. "I can't," he said simply. "Not until you know the truth." "Truth?" "You've been stalking me for years, Ryan. Manipulating my life, turning my friends and family against me. What part of that is supposed to make me trust you?" He raised his hands in a gesture of surrender. "I admit it. I've done terrible things. But not because I wanted to. I had no choice. Don't lie to me. I'm not." His voice cracked. "You think I wanted this? You think I chose to spend my life shadowing yours? I was given a job, Alex. A job I didn't understand at first, but one I couldn't refuse. I thought I was protecting you. And then I started to care. Maybe too much. But if I hadn't been there, you'd be dead by now." "Protecting me from what?" Ryan hesitated, glancing at the box on the table. "From them. The people who put me in your life in the first place. The ones who've been watching you since you were a child." "Who are they?" He shook his head. "I don't know their names. Just their symbol." "The phoenix," I said, my voice barely a whisper. Ryan's eyes widened. "You know about them?" I nodded, my grip on the knife faltering. "Then you know they don't stop." "Not ever." Something shifted in the air, a crackling tension that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. You need to leave, I said, my voice firmer now. I don't care about your excuses. I don't care who you think you're protecting me from. Just go. I can't, he said. Don't you get it? If I leave, they'll send someone else. Someone worse. He took a step closer, and I raised the knife again. Stay back. Alex, please. His hand shot out, grabbing my wrist. We struggled, the knife falling to the floor with a clatter. Ryan was stronger than I'd realized, his grip like iron. You're not listening, he shouted, his face inches from mine. They'll kill you if they find out you know. A sudden, blinding pain shot through my head as I slammed it into his, breaking free from his hold. I scrambled for the knife, but Ryan tackled me, pinning me to the ground. I didn't want it to end like this, he said, his voice heavy with regret. But you've left me no choice. I fought with everything I had, twisting and kicking, until my hand found the knife's hilt. With a desperate scream, I plunged it into his side. Ryan gasped, his eyes wide with shock. He staggered back, clutching the wound, blood seeping through his fingers. I didn't want this, he whispered, collapsing to the floor. For a moment, all I could hear was my own ragged breathing. Then I saw it, a key clutched in Ryan's hand. Trembling, I pried it loose and used it to unlock the hidden compartment in the box. Inside was a dossier with my name on it. The first page was a birth certificate, mine, but the parents listed weren't the ones who had raised me. There were more documents, including a letter signed with the same Phoenix logo. Subject: Alex has been placed with the surrogate family. Monitor their development closely. Ensure no knowledge of their origins is revealed. My hands shook as I flipped through the pages, finding references to experiments, control groups, and an activation protocol. Ryan had been telling the truth. The sound of sirens in the distance jolted me back to reality. I looked down at Ryan, his breathing shallow, his eyes glazed with pain. You have to run, he whispered. They'll come for you now. Who are they? I asked, tears streaming down my face. But Ryan didn't answer. His head slumped forward, and he was still. I fled into the night, clutching the dossier like a lifeline. The questions it raised were too many to count. Who were my real parents? What did the Phoenix organization want with me? And most terrifying of all, had I truly escaped, or was this just the beginning of something far worse?